There's a sentence you say without even thinking about it. Someone asks if you need help, and before they finish the question, you've already said it. No, I'm good. You didn't decide to say it. It just comes out every single time. And the strange part is, half the time, you did need the help. You just didn't take it. If that feels familiar, stay with me, because that tiny reflex is a loose thread. Pull on it and it goes back further than you'd think. Back to a kid who learned something so early and so quietly that it stopped feeling like a lesson and started feeling like who they are. Picture a child holding up a drawing, not a good one, a kid's drawing. But they're proud of it, so they carry it over to someone, hold it up, and wait. And that someone is on the phone or tired or somewhere else in their head and says, "That's nice," without really looking. Once, that's nothing. Every kid has that moment. But picture it happening again and again, not with cruelty, just 100 small times across years. And slowly, the kid stops holding the drawing up. They learn to put it away and not mention it. That's where this starts. Not with something that happened to you, but with something that kept not happening. Now that kid grows up, and here's who they usually become. You're the capable one, the one who figured things out early. While other kids were still asking for help with everything, you were already handling yourself, solving your own problems before anyone noticed you had them. You became, in one word, low maintenance. And people love that about you. Friends lean on you. At work, you're the one who doesn't need managing. That's real, and it's a genuine strength. I'm not here to take it away from you. But where did it actually come from? Most people assume independence is just a personality you're born with. We call it maturity, like it's a gift. But independence that shows up this early usually isn't chosen. It's built, and almost always for the same reason. Somewhere along the way, reaching out stopped working. So the child stopped reaching. Let me show you what that looks like because a researcher caught it on video. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Edward Tronick ran what's now called the still face experiment. A mother plays with her baby, smiling, responding, and the baby is delighted. Then she's asked to do one thing, go completely blank. No expression, no reaction, nothing. And you watch this baby try everything to get her back. It smiles, it points, it reaches out. It's practically shouting, "See me, respond to me." And when nothing comes, baby gets upset, then confused, and then it does the thing that stays with you. It looks away, it gives up, and it starts trying to soothe itself, alone. That's the whole pattern, in 2 minutes. When reaching out gets you nothing, you stop reaching out and turn inward. Now stretch that across an entire childhood, and you get an adult who says, "I'm good," before anyone's even had the chance to offer. And I want to be careful here, because this is where people talk themselves out of it. Feeling ignored doesn't mean your parents were cruel. There was usually no yelling, nothing you could point at. On paper, your needs were met, fed, clothed, a roof. Psychologists call the missing part emotional neglect. And the strange thing is that it's defined by absence, not by something bad that was done to you, but by something warm that wasn't. The comfort that didn't come, the question nobody asked, the "how are you really doing" that never got said. That's why so many people who lived it say the exact same sentence. My childhood was fine. Nothing bad happened. And they mean it. Because nothing happened. That was the whole problem. And being noticed isn't a luxury. Researchers at Harvard Center on the Developing Child call it serve and return. A child reaches out, a caregiver responds, and that back and forth teaches a young brain that people are safe. Miss enough of it, and the child quietly decides their needs are a bother. So what does a kid do with a need that keeps going unanswered? They adapt, but not all the same way. It splits into different versions of the same wound. See which one is yours. The first you already know. You became independent. You decided without ever saying it that needing people was risky, so you stopped needing them. Safer to rely on yourself, because yourself always shows up. The second is quieter. Some kids went the other way. Instead of needing less, they gave more. If attention wasn't going to arrive on its own, they'd earn it. So they became helpful, useful. The kid who read the room and kept everyone happy. If you still feel responsible for how everyone else in the room feels, that's where it comes from. Being needed became the closest thing to being seen. The third, people miss entirely. Some kids didn't just hide their needs, they lost track of them completely. Spend years learning that your feelings get no response, and you stop checking what your feelings even are. So now someone asks, "What do you want to do this weekend?" And your mind goes blank. Not because you don't care, because somewhere back there you stopped keeping track of what you wanted. You got expert at reading everyone else and lost the signal on yourself. There's a name for the machine behind all this. John Bowlby, who founded attachment theory, said that as kids we build internal working models. It's simpler than it sounds. It's the private rulebook in your head about what to expect from people. Will they show up when I need them, or won't they? You wrote that rulebook when you were tiny, and you followed it ever since, even with people who would show up in a heartbeat if you let them. That's why the reflex is so stubborn. You're not reacting to the person in front of you. You're following a rule you learned before you could spell your own name. And now here's the part I most want you to sit with, because it might be the truest thing in this video. Think about the version of you other people get today. You're the one your friends come to when their life is falling apart. You always know what to say. You make them feel less alone. People call you the most understanding person they know, and you've probably never once wondered why you're so good at it. You're good at it because you spent your whole childhood on the other side of it. You know exactly what to say to someone who feels invisible because you were that someone, holding up the drawing, waiting for a person to look. You didn't learn comfort from being comforted. You learned it from the shape of the space where it should have been. You became the person you needed and never got. And now, you hand that person out to everyone, freely, without being asked. The one thing nobody handed to you. And here's a smaller one that probably still stings. Remember the drawing? Now you're an adult who can't take a compliment. You finish something huge and immediately say, "It wasn't a big deal," before anyone else can. A psychologist named Jeffrey Young would call that a schema, a belief that formed so early it now runs on its own. Yours might sound like, "My needs aren't that important." There's one hard thing I'll say, gently. That independence you're proud of protects you and isolates you at the same time. If you never need anyone, you never fully let anyone in either. That quiet feeling of being a little alone, even around people who like you, that's not a flaw. That's the old rule, still running. So let's go back to that sentence from the start. "No, I'm good. I'm fine." That's the whole thing the kid learned. Not that you're unlovable, not that something's broken in you. Just one small rule, learned so young, it started to feel like your personality. The safest thing to do with a need is to handle it yourself and not mention it. And if some part of you kept quietly going, "That's me," let me say the thing that kid waited a long time to hear. It was never that you were too much, not once. You were a child who reached out and didn't get enough back, so you got very good at needing less. That's not a flaw. It's a small person doing the most sensible thing they could with what they had. The people around you now are not the people who taught you that rule. Somewhere in your life, there's a person who would look up the second you held the drawing out. You were never actually low maintenance. You were a kid who learned to ask for less and got so good at it that everyone believed you, including you. There are more of us than you'd think, and that reaching out you gave up on so early, it never went away. It was only ever waiting for somewhere safe to land.